Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second lunchtime History and Archives in Practice conversation session. It's really lovely to have you with us this lunchtime. My name's Claire Langhamer. I'm Director of the Institute of Historical Research, which is based in Senate House, London, but which is a national centre for history and historians. The Institute partners with the National Archives and the Royal Historical Society on the History and Archives in Practice initiative. And we are really happy that we do that. It's a really lovely, lovely thing. For delegates with visual impairments, I'll give a quick self-description of myself. I'm a pretty tired woman in her mid-50s with dyed red hair that's put up in a bun with some grey roots showing, and I'm wearing green glasses. Okay, so this session is going to run for 45 minutes, and that includes time for your questions or comments. So please do submit them via the Q&A function throughout the session. We very much envisage this session in keeping with its subject as a collective conversation. So we look forward to hearing from you. So today we're joined by Tony Dowmunt, who is Emeritus Professor at Goldsmiths and co-director of the London Community Video Archive. We'll be talking about the archive and in particular about its programme of community screenings and events. Tony started his working life as a community video activist in South London in the 1970s and 80s and began working for television while working for Albany Video, a community-based workshop in Deptford. Since then, Tony has made a range of TV documentaries, has taught documentary at Goldsmiths, and has always maintained an interest in community-based video and social action media. Tony's currently working on two websites, Satellite Dreaming Revisited, about Australian Indigenous media, and London Community Video Archive, which we're looking at today. But before we get into our conversation, Tony's going to talk very briefly about the archive's origins and activities, and we're then going to show a brief couple of minute clip to give you a flavour of the archive. So Tony, welcome, and I'll pass over to you.
Okay, you can hear me fine, can you?
I can, yes.
Okay. Following on from Claire, my visual self-description would be considerably older, mid-70s, and with entirely grey hair and glasses. So that's what I look like. LCVA, the archive that we're talking about, was initiated almost a decade ago by three of us, Swiss anthropologist and community artist Heinz Nigg, and two London video activists from the 1970s, that's Andy Porter and myself. This kind of was stimulated initially, this activity in the 70s was initiated by the introduction of the Portapack. For the first time, portable video had been available for kind of non-professional use. Heinz also co-wrote a book called Community Media, a book published in 1980 that examined the use of video and other media by local groups. And one of the groups in the book was West London Media Workshop, of which Andy Porter, my colleague, was a founder member. In the 1970s and 80s, as Claire's indicated, I worked in Southeast London, first on the Aylesbury estate and secondly with Albany Video. So the point I think that I want to make about all that is that the archive project is kind of driven by grassroots experience of the activism that the archive archives, as it were. We were joined in around 2015 by Ed Webb Ingle, who's a researcher and media activist from a younger generation. And it was his enthusiasm for the history and contemporary relevance of community video that provided us with a decisive impetus towards the project. I'm going to attempt to share my screen now to describe the four main functions of LCVA, and then we can show a clip and chat. Right. Is that working? Okay. So these four main functions and aims of the London Community Video Archive are, firstly, to collect and preserve community and activist videotapes made in London and the South East in the 70s and 80s. This is because a lot of that material is actually physically disintegrating. I mean, it's becoming almost impossible to use, particularly the half-inch black and white material that was made mainly in the 70s. That's kind of getting to the point where unless something is done now, it'll be lost. So we've already recovered an enormous amount of that. The second function was is still to record all history interviews with the video makers involved. So that's again because we're disintegrating and won't be around forever. And the third is to disseminate the tapes and interviews along with relevant documents, which includes, incidentally, Heinz's book on the site, to also including graphics, reports, and other material, but primarily the video archive itself and the oral history interviews. And fourthly, and for us really probably most significantly and importantly, to organise playbacks of the material and encourage its use with contemporary activist groups. The reason it's important is that we never really viewed LCVA as only a historical project, a repository for historical material, or even as purely as an online project. We always felt that its primary function should be to make the material useful in current debates and activism. I mean, I would add at the moment that particularly at this moment we're in with a new government, and hopefully a government that's kind of moving on from the neoliberalism that's been dominant since Thatcher, is that the recovering some of the historical memory of the 70s and 80s seems to me to at the point where Thatcherism really kind of came in and dominated, I think is a really important project politically for activism as well. So we're hoping that the vibrancy and hope embedded in a lot of these and the memories embedded in these videos that we archive has that kind of contemporary relevance and resonance. So bringing it right up to date, we've just in 2016 we were awarded a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund, which helped us really establish the project in its current form. And we've just heard that we've won a second Heritage Lottery Award to extend and develop these aims over the next 2 years, particularly in relation to issues of the accessibility of the archive. So we're going to just show a brief couple of minute clip from our trailer, which will give you some notion of the flavour of the material on our website. Oh, we are. Oh, yes, we are. Great.
That should do fine.
Yeah. You could just never get across the road, ever. The times I've nearly been knocked down.
Caretaker won't let them play ball. They can't ride their bikes. They can't do anything there. They're just organised prisons. That's what they are.
Our next meeting's next Wednesday, and you can see yourself on television and hear your voice. What do you mean? Next Wednesday in the Tenants' Hall at 8 o'clock, and if you bring all your friends, we'd love to see you.
Now cut it here. Cut it here.
That's it now. Let's go.
We'll keep that going then, right through that little bit, if you like.
I suppose there might be a time in the future where there would be people's TV, right? I mean, I think it will look very different.
There's no nightlife on Thamesmead.
I really think that the councillors need to do something as far as recreation time and environment is concerned. Yeah. It looks to me like a concrete jungle.
Well, what we want is a workshop where we can work from to make ourselves self-employed to make money, and we can get off the dole. And we decided to make this tape to show the council that we don't just sit on our asses all day.
Because housing is
the A1 thing. I mean, you can go without a job. People could go without food for a couple of days, but with accommodation it's totally different.
I wouldn't say being black affects your chances, but racism affects your chances.
All number threes are the councillors from the council who are going to decide where those kids are going to be able to play this summer. Go!
You're a counsellor, why can't I come to you? Because I just like children.
This is Summer Play Scheme 1975. And here you see the combination of the children and Children's Street Adventure Playground preparing for the Deptford Olympics. What do you feel about now and how things are run?
Well, I think there should be a lot more parents involved.
Thank you so much. It's such a marvelous clip, and I'd encourage people to watch the whole thing, because it's just it's lovely and challenging and poignant, and just all the things that kind of people are and everyday life is. So I sort of wanted to start, Tony, by asking you, what is it about these videos as a kind of form of representation that you've clearly been so taken with over such a length of time?
I think the key thing is that they've all been generated by the people that you see themselves, so that there's a sense. I guess the kind of key aim of our work at the time was to make that what it was then a very new medium available to people. I mean, it's kind of a, you know, nowadays with mobile phones and YouTube and all that stuff, it's difficult to think back to a time when actually there were 3 television channels. Getting onto them for anybody was very, very difficult. Certainly for kind of the kind of marginalized groups that we've always dealt with, impossible. So that there was a sense of which we were trying to kind of work with people to represent themselves in that environment, which was very, very controlled.
Yeah, and they conjure up there's a real sense of that moment. They have absolute historicity within them, don't they? As you're watching them, you're like, as well as the subject matter as well. And to sort of follow up on that, I know, I mean, some of the material is, very everyday, but the everyday is really difficult for some people. And I kind of wondered, in thinking about this session, I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was thinking about how you deal with those kind of challenges of the fact that some of the people who feature on these clips are they're talking about really difficult experiences of racism, experiences of personal tragedy. How do you deal with that in terms of archiving the material and making it available to people?
It would be virtually impossible for us to contact everyone who appears on those videos. What we do is work very closely with the rights holders of the videos, who are mostly people who, almost entirely people who themselves were involved in their production, so that we have, so they'll know who they were working with and what their attitude to being on tape was. And obviously the ethos at the time was completely different to mainstream television, which was often invasive and exploited people. We were always very careful to seek and get proper informed consent for people we work with, and often the people that we work with were using the cameras themselves. They were editing themselves, as I think you can see in that clip. So the key to it is that sense of involvement and participation from the start.
And trust, I guess, because trust is so essential to any kind of community work. Yeah. And community activism, and I'll come back to activism later if we have time. But so, I mean, because this was a kind of rapidly democratizing form, presumably you've had to make some choices about selections, what you take. How do you do that? Because anybody who's involved in archiving knows that there is a limit to what you can take. So what's your approach? What's your kind of collections policy on this?
I guess our sort of the first move really is to hoover up anything and everything because it's disappearing, and there is actually very little of it there. You know, we've often had to go around to people and have them scour their shelves and look in their attics for old stuff, and so a lot of it is pretty random collection of that kind, just sucking it in. We have on a few occasions done some re-edits of material, again in collaboration with people who were making those tapes at the time, so that, for instance, August the 13th, which is a taken from 1977 about the Anti-National Front March, which is one of the sort of tapes that gets the most viewing on the site. That had kind of disintegrated to the point where bits of it were unviewable. So the John White, who's at Albany Video at the time that made the tape, he recut it a few years ago, like 3-4 years ago, to make it he didn't change it massively, but he chucked some bits out and tried to deal with the kind of disintegrated bits more. So there's some sort of improvements that go on, but always in conjunction with in cooperation with the people who've made them.
And to enhance their usability, I suppose, because they're certainly one of the key things, as you mentioned in the introduction, is that these are not, you're not just archiving these. The purpose is to actually do something with them. I'm really interested in the oral history interviews that you're doing, like really rounding out the context of production for these pieces. That's just really lovely. And I wondered whether you could say a little bit about the kinds of insights that doing the oral history interviews alongside having these historically rooted text kind of brings to the archive.
Yeah, I guess that's for other people to judge, really. I mean, I think we, I mean, I could talk a bit about the interview that was done with me. I mean, what we did was actually back in the first iteration of the project, we worked with younger filmmakers, and they deliberately, because we thought that if our generation itself did the interviews, they would be from a very particular perspective. We were interested in getting the perspective, the kind of questions that younger people would want to ask of interviewees. So I think again, it's difficult to say what I mean. I love all of the interviews and think that there's a massive amount of material in them, but quite how to characterize their particular use, I'm not sure, actually. Interesting question.
And that, I mean, that cross-generational or intergenerational movement, that certainly comes out in some of the ways that the videos are being used, and is so vital at the moment. So I wondered if you could just say a little bit about the way the archive has been used, and even over the last 8 years, whether there have been significant changes in the things that you have done with it, and the things that other people have done with some of the material.
I don't think there are kind of massive changes over the years. I think something that's always, over the last, whatever it's been, 6-8 years, I think the thing that always strikes us is that is how people kind of latch on to things. I mean, it could be very different things. Like one playback session I remember very well is one where we showed a film about a school in Southwark, which was made in the 70s, and to the Southwark Historical Society. It was a kind of contemporary group of people interested in history, but a lot of them there were teachers, and their kind of their excitement about the video came from looking at those kinds of very libertarian teaching practices, which at the time were, you know, like there were long-haired art teachers messing around with paints with kids, and they were kind of astounded. I mean, that's a caricature, but there was basically sort of much more libertarian flavor to the education, and And they were very moved to see that, because they weren't able as themselves to experiment with those forms of teaching, because of the kind of rigidifying of the curriculum and all of the stuff that we know has happened since. So that kind of sense of being exposed to something that was going on in the 70s and being able to contrast that with their experience in the present, I think that's the core to what happens in the playbacks, really, when they're working well.
Oh, that's lovely. So that sense of it having you know, having an intrinsic interest in it being a record of this period, but also having a real utility for contemporary audiences, sort of demonstrating why archives matter, essentially, that they can be usable to help us understand sort of where we've been and where we might want to go, but certainly where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also that sense of being moved by them as well. I mean, that's often when we encounter representations of the past, there's a kind of feeling part of that, isn't there? And I wondered how when people do use them, when they're presented to contemporary audiences, where that feeling comes out, how it's, you know, how people deal with it, because as I said at the beginning, some of these are really difficult topics.
I think it's sort of very different in lots of different contexts. So I'm trying to think through other playback sessions I've been at. There was one, two actually showings of August the 13th, the program about the video about the National Front March that I mentioned. Was one was a very sort of public meeting, which was commemorating the events. It was a kind of what it was, 40th anniversary event of the march and the demonstrations and all that. And that was that we were able to show a contemporary film from the Black community, from a younger Black person that was looking back at that time as well, alongside the old film, which was one of the things we do quite often is to try and, you know, get something made or shown that's contemporary and contrast it with some archive. And that resulted in a very lively discussion, particularly with members of the Black community who were there in at the screening, and which was really about reviving and thinking through that historical memory. But there was also there was a much smaller scale screening of the same video where I can't now remember exactly who it was, but it was a woman that in the screening who had a very personal connection to the events and was able to really talk those through and work those through with the group that was there. So yeah, I think the responses vary from quite public and political down to more personal, and there's a lot of, you know, some of the playbacks we've had have resulted in a lot of just reminiscence, really, of people saying, "Oh, I remember that," or "I remember you doing that." You know, because we did one screening of a tape in the Deptford area, where there were a number of women who'd been in the tape who came back together and talked through the experience of being that and what had happened to them in the last, whatever it's been, 20, 30 years.
Oh, that's lovely. So it's kind of bringing a community back together again.
In that case, it was very much that, yes. Yeah.
And also having that conversation across time, using a similar form, and then also that intimacy of somebody's own, you know, really kind of deep personal connection to a piece. That's just really lovely. Thank you. I have so many other things I would like to talk to you about, but we have got a load of questions and comments in the Q&A. So let's go to that, and then we can come back if there's time. I'll ask you some more. So we have Rob asks, Tony, how are you reaching out to people now to add to your oral history archive?
Well, I mean, if anyone contacts us who wants to be interviewed, that would be great. I mean, mostly what we do is work with people that we've known about or know. So, for instance, we're wanting, and I think Carol's agreed to do an interview with a woman called Carol Jacobs who works at Albany Video, and we've just acquired one of the video that she made there. So we're going to be, but she's been, you know, around for a long time since I knew her at Albany Video. So a lot of it is personal connection. But we know we're not getting everybody. So if anybody's out there who wants to actually contribute videos or oral interviews, we'd love to hear from you.
Marvelous. Okay, thank you. Adam has some questions, and I'm just going to take them one at a time. Does the archive have a physical base, or is it largely purely digital? If so, what was your largest challenge in making this digital archive?
We archive digitally in the sense that we digitize all the tapes that we can, that we get hold of. We haven't digitized every single one of them, but most of them we have. And so it also exists in part, not totally, but in part as a physical archive of videotapes, which are in a cupboard, you know, so that, you know, tricky that, because I'm not sure we're preserving them properly, but but we do make sure that they are they're digitized, and there are multiple digital copies everywhere. We've lodged a lot of them with the BFI, so the BFI have 3 or 4 different digital centres which they're all copied into, and we're about to start a relationship with the London Screen Archives and house a lot of stuff on their site as well. So we try and get it as much of a digital presence as we can. Fabulous.
And how exactly are you preserving older films, the ones that are disintegrating? What challenges have you faced, and lessons? Others, you know, how can others learn from your experiences?
I think it is possible to lodge them in sites which are more temperature controlled than probably the ones that we're putting our stuff in. I mean, because the value to us is rescuing, preserving, and digitizing them, where our focus is on that rather than on physical preservation. Partly because of the you know, a lot of, I mean, there are some that were undigitizable because they wouldn't even run through a machine to get the, you know, past the block. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a noticeable difference when working with intergenerational audiences? How different audiences respond and engage, and what conversations have been sparked in that intergenerational moment? Great question.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, I think in a way, some of what I was saying before is true here, is that the material does spark intergenerational conversation, and that does happen in some of the playback. So that at this teacher's one I was talking about before, that was that they were younger teachers who were there, who were interested in the experience of the older teachers in the video. So that was very much an intergenerational thing. I think I'm trying to think of other examples. I mean, one of the things that continually strikes us is that younger people are really engaged with this stuff. In a way, we were quite surprised, because we right at the beginning we were quite surprised because we didn't know that it would have this amount of resonance with people who hadn't encountered that material before. But I think there is something, you know, and maybe relating to what I was saying about the political moment we're in at the moment, there is something about you know, almost everybody under 50 has no experience of anything other than neoliberal governments, basically, and kind of that sort of dominance of that. ideology. And so there is within the tapes, there are these glimpses of different ways of doing things, different, more participative ways, more kind of expressive ways, or whatever you want, you know, in the case of the teaching. So I think there is a sort of a fact, just, I mean, apart from just the historical fascination, there is a sort of fascination with the kind of energy that is in the tapes.
Love that. That is that sense of just the radical nature of showing different ways of being.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really, really beautiful. Seth has some questions around security. Is there a long-term plan for the site and initiatives containing its security? And additionally, has the site ever faced a cyber attack? What do you do to prevent this?
We haven't faced a cyber attack, as far as I know. We have had a lot of cyber difficulties, in the sense that we've had a lot of challenges, which is one of the reasons why we applied to the Heritage Lottery Fund, because we wanted to strengthen, renew, and kind of solidify, and, you know, make the site more secure in a way that I think the question is asking. Yeah, it is an issue, and I think it always is an issue with websites and digital culture generally, because though it's, you know, digitization is thought to be a way of securing the future of stuff. I think, I mean, you know, what a lot of archivists say is that actually nothing beats celluloid as a way of preserving material. So it is something that we reckon we probably have to build in sort of renewal at least every sort of 5 to 10 years, really.
And as a follow-up to that from Seth, how many views do you get to the site monthly?
I don't currently know the answer to that. I think, and it also varies enormously on what's going on in, you know, currently. So that, for instance, you know, again, going back to August 13th, there was an Observer article about that event that was about the commemorating the march and the resistance to the National Front, and that resulted in an extraordinary number. I mean, hundreds of thousands of views of that videotape and of the site. And there are other videos that the Irish in England, for instance, which for some reason always scores really highly on the ratings. It's not something we totally understand, but so I can't give a monthly figure, as it were, but it does, and it fluctuates enormously. So for whoever's whatever's going on and whatever's live, as it were. But and we should do more analysis of that, really. And I think we did the current HLF fund, but I haven't got the figure on the top of my head, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Adam has a couple of questions. Do you incorporate non-video physical materials and ephemera into your screening sessions, and how do you collect the physical material?
We do have collected physical material, and a lot of it is in the documents section on the video on the archive site. We have done some use of artifact. Ed Webbing, who I mentioned before, had access to a Portapack, the machine that we used in the sort of 70s, and we have used that. It doesn't actually work very much still anymore, but you can see it, and it's funny because it's called portable video, but actually it weighs about 50 pounds in total and is extremely unportable, really. But so we've done demonstrations of stuff using that to talk about early portable video, and we've done, you know, some exhibitions where we've got sort of vitrines with old catalogues and that kind of stuff in it. So a bit, but not a massive amount. You know.
Okay, thank you. And Yasmin asks, how do you connect with community groups for the screenings?
Well, if you're part of a community group and you want to get in touch with us, please do, because we're always we actually, even when we're sort of working voluntarily, which we have been between the HLF grants, we do get probably 2-3 requests a month for people who want to use the material in screenings, and there are normally community groups of one kind or another, sometimes institutions, mostly community groups. So we're really open to being contacted and for people to use the material. Basically, people normally email us on LCVA. Anyway, the email's on the site. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you. And Terry says, are you aware of how the archive has been used by researchers as a primary data source?
Right. Yes. There has been a certain amount of academic work done. I mean, Ed himself has written a book and has done a thesis which features some of the material. There are a lot of, we're currently working with 2 PhD students who are doing research in and around the archive using the, it does, all of that involves using the material as primary source material for sure. So yes, very keen. We work with anybody who's interested in the stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I think that then answers, Yasmin had a follow-up question, which was, do you have an email we can go to if we'd like to arrange a screening? We're interested.
Yes, it's on the website. I think from memory, it's lcva@gold.ac.uk. But if you go to the website, you will find the email, sure.
Fabulous. And then another couple of questions as we're coming, time is sadly escaping us, but how have you found attitudes to the project amongst your colleagues and other historians? Is this digital archive viewed positively?
I could only answer that anecdotally. I'm not a historian. I'm basically a filmmaker. So I mean, again, back to the August 13th screening, that was organised by the history department at Goldsmiths, where I teach, the University of London, and then they were very excited about the fact that because we actually found the video for that event, and that was a sort of significant historical discovery as far as they were concerned. I think, again, purely, I'm not aware of academic historians looking at the material as primary resource material, and so it may happen. I'm sure it does happen, and I hope it does. But apart from that Goldsmiths occasion, I can't remember other occasions.
I think that speaks to one of the things that, as speaking, historians can do more of, is to kind of have that feedback loop of how we use material, and that, because historians and archivists very much work in a partnership constantly, and kind of making that a sort of a virtuous circle rather than just extracting the material and moving on. I think that would
be interesting. I mean, yes, if there are historians out there who want to work with us, we'll be very welcome.
And Adam asked a lovely question. Do you have a favourite video? Is this like asking if you have a favourite child?
Yeah. It's a complicated question because I mean, there's probably a sort of a broader answer and a more personal answer. The personal answer would have to be one of the ones that I made with a group of young people on the Aylesbury estate, which was called Into the Darkness, and was a sort of Star Wars spoof, or actually it was even well before Star Wars. What was the Starship Enterprise one anyway?
That's right.
But I think in terms of the very difficult to choose because there's so much variety in it. And in terms of the archive as a whole, I guess, I don't know, maybe one of the videos from the Pepys estate in Deptford that my colleague John White made, or there's lots and lots of different stuff that I love. But, yeah.
Marvellous. Well, that's all of the questions. And thank you everybody for those marvellous questions and comments. I suppose I would like to just end by asking you about the future. And you talked about the new funding. Congratulations on that. But these are quite challenging times for lots of people involved in recording and writing history. So I wondered, your sense of the future of archives like this, and also your kind of hopes for the future for the archives.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, broadly speaking, I hope it continues to be used and used more broadly, and like the things we were talking about in terms of working with historians or working with anybody, with community groups, all of that is what really strengthens us. In sort of more materially, one of the things that we're planning to do in our current financial state is to work with the London Screen Archives and to work with a lot of the rights holders and materials to see whether we can set up a formal mechanism for people to buy clips from the archive, so that what that would potentially give, it wouldn't give us, we wouldn't make massive amounts of money out of it, but the idea is to get it to the point where it's not totally dependent on lots and lots of voluntary labour, that we could tick over, just get that sense that so, it'll survive for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, that kind of thing.
And that, I think that's that attention to the labour involved in projects like these, and also, the labour involved in all sorts of community history projects, all around the Four Nations is, it's important to always remember that. Thank you. Tony, thank you so much. I just have really, really loved finding out more about this work and looking at some of the clips, and as a historian who works on the everyday, it's just really, really lovely, and some of it is so moving and beautiful. So thank you, and thank you to everybody else who's been on this call. Really, really lovely to have you with us. I am now tasked with advertising the next and final History and Archives in Practice Lunchtime in Conversation session. So next time round, which will be Monday, the 29th of July, we will be joined by the University of Stirling COVID Oral History Project team. And the link to join that, I think, is in the chat, or will be in the chat. I think yes, it is. It's great, it is in the chat. So please do. It's just such a lovely thing to do, to get together and think collaboratively about archives and their value, but also pressingly kind of their value now, not just as archives, but as living, active things that can do good work in society. The other thing I finally need to say is please do keep your eyes, ears, whatever else you want to keep peeled for the next HAP announcement, which will be the announcement of the conference that we will be holding next spring, which will be HAP25. So we're very excited about this ongoing collaboration, certainly from the Institute of Historical Research's perspective. This is just a lovely, lovely thing. It's just getting archives, libraries, researchers, everybody just in the same space to talk about the past and how the past actually matters for the now is really, really great. So I'd like to thank everybody, but first, mainly thank Tony for just being just fabulous and interesting, and for sharing your work with us. And also thank the National Archive team who have been quietly doing all the actual work in the background while I've just been doing the talky bit. So thank you ever so much. Okay. Then I call this conversation to an end, bang on 1:45. So thank you, everybody. Goodbye.